in it. They're going to have a press conference at noon over at the RNC headquarters. We've got this situation in Wisconsin. We'll give you more details later, but it's a real fight in Wisconsin. You got a thing in Michigan where they're talking about decertifying this or not able to certify it. You've got Georgia with the great lawyer Lynn Wood on this consent order that's never been public, that he's fighting in federal court, representing the citizens of Georgia, not the campaign. You've got Grinnell, Adam Laxalt, and Matt Schlapp, who are guys that are all business. They're in Nevada, and they're saying, hey, this thing stinks to high heaven. You got the 135,000 in the supervisors race that was thrown out. You've got 15,000 either dead or moved. They say there's going to be a lot more. And we're not even talking about Arizona, but you got 5 battles going on. We're in federal court in Pennsylvania. You've seen that they didn't enforce the injunction. Is this a rearguard action, or is the movement spending its time in assisting the president and closing the victory on November 3rd?
If we do not fix this, if we do not expose this fraud, they're not going to get worse at it. They're going to get better at it, and we will never win another national election again. Those are the stakes in these fights in the several states that you've discussed. And I don't think that, like, to really get a full audit across the enterprise, we have to flip every one of these states at once. Here's my prediction, Steve. We flip one of these states that the media has called for Joe Biden, and the whole veneer comes down. The whole fiction that he's President-elect Joe Biden and that this thing is over is eroded if you're able to see that there was fraud sufficient to flip a state. Because then I think the American people will say, well, wait a second. Like, if you lied to us about Georgia, we got to ask some more questions about Wisconsin. Or if you lied to us about Wayne County, Michigan, how are we supposed to believe what went on in Fulton County, right? And I think that asking those tough questions is an important obligation the president has, not for his own political fortunes, but for the future of a populist movement that is very much opposed by the people who run these places where they're more susceptible to fraud.
Do you think, look, you're a pretty smart lawyer, do you think in this situation there's enough, as you see it, fraud on a scale that can actually flip it back to Trump? Or has the stuff been so commingled and so messed up that you just got to go the decertification, which eventually kicks it to the House of Representatives?
That will be a tough case to make in the absence of one of these states flipping, and the state that is trending.
I guarantee a state's got to flip.
Well, a state's got to flip, and I think Georgia is really on a positive trajectory for the president. I mean, look, they're not finding errors in Georgia of, like, you know, tens or hundreds of ballots. I mean, they're finding discrepancies that are in the thousands of ballots. The state Republican Party chairman walking through how these incorrect tabulations result in, like, a 9,000 vote swing toward the president, and that's only looking at a small batch of counties. Imagine when they go statewide and really look at this thing.
Whereas people are asking us every day, where's Kemp? Kemp does not exist. If Donald Trump's not actively working for him to win to beat Stacey Abrams, where is Kemp? This lieutenant governor is a disaster. The Secretary of State is the worst. He's on MSNBC every day burying the president. How can this possibly happen in this party?
Well, I think the Secretary of State is largely covering for this consent decree with the Stacey Abrams crowd that we talked about. And, like, for those who are listening who don't understand the significance of these decrees, what happens is when people don't have the power to change the laws through the elected legislature, they just go and sue. And then that lawsuit becomes a platform for the far left to sort of come together with the corporate elite establishment right and cut a deal that cuts out the representative process.
So
that
what
we
they
are
can't
supposed to
get,
have in
they
our
can't get a
republic.
statutory change because they don't really have the stroke. So
Right.
what they do is they get they sue, then get in a room with nobody watching, cut a consent, and that consent essentially becomes statutory.
And once a judge signs off on that, once the parties sign off on it, these private agreements entered into by litigants have the force of law that exceeds what the elected representatives of the people would advocate for and support. And when we're talking about something as significant as voting, that is crazy. But to your point, the Democrats lawyered up. Stacey Abrams went and muscled up in the courtroom, and they got these things done while we were sort of planning the next Make America Great Again rally, which was fun and turned out many millions more people, but that I think lacked a requisite focus on the mechanics of voting, and we've got to get better at that.